So let's begin this lesson by navigating to where your project files are located, then opening up Chapter 1, then opening up the file number 1, 3D Space. Before we start creating 3D layers in After Effects, we should take a look at our configuration and the preferences that we've set up in After Effects. To take a look at the preferences we want to target, we don't need to go into the General Preference menu. We can go directly into the menu we need by navigating at the bottom of the comp window. So here at the bottom of the comp window, we know that we have the ability to change the way the comp window is being redrawn. Currently, it's set to Adaptive Resolution, but below we can see that there are two OpenGL preferences. If you're working on a Mac, you may find that these options aren't available to you. Currently, Adobe isn't supporting this on the Mac, so you may not get all of the same OpenGL options that we're going to see on the PC. But don't worry, we'll still be able to create all of the 3D pieces on either platform. First, let's go down to Fast Preview's Preferences. By opening this, we do go to the Preference menu, and inside this menu, we can see that there is a section for our Fast Previews. Here we can change our Adaptive Resolution limit, meaning by how much After Effects will change the resolution in order to keep up with our movement in our comp window. Or we can change the OpenGL. Now, OpenGL is just a graphics language that's generally used on a video card in order to accelerate the image that we see when we're working in 3D. Now, if we take a look at the OpenGL info, you can see all of the information for the card that you have. Now, your card may be different than the card we're using right now, but if After Effects recognizes it, it will show up with the vendor's name. In our case, we're using an NVIDIA card, and it shows the specifications of that card. Additionally, down below, we can see all of the different redraw capabilities that are supported. In this area, we can see that the specific card we're using supports all of the blending modes, our adjustment layers, track mats, the specific effects that use the card to redraw faster, anti-aliasing, and motion blur. Below this area, we can see that this card also supports both lights and shadows. These are all very important things to look for if you're going to purchase a brand new video card. And before you do, you should take a look at the software that you're going to run and see which cards the software recommends. Now, if you don't have an OpenGL card currently and you want to upgrade to one that After Effects will take advantage of, visit the Adobe site to see a list of all of the cards that After Effects supports. So this is basically just showing us what our card looks like, and we've allocated a certain amount of memory so that we can display textures well. We'll just click OK. And in here, make sure that this is turned on. If this is not enabled, then you're not going to see those options show up inside the comp window. So here, if you have this turned off, make sure that it is enabled so we can actually use it in our comp window. Next, we'll take a look at the pull down for Accelerate Effects using OpenGL. If we click here, we can see that there are two different options for us to view our comp window. But we don't have to change this here. We know that if we click OK, then navigate to the bottom of the comp window, we can change the way that we view the effects here as well. So in addition to the options that we previously had with Off or Wireframe, which allows us to see just the outlines of the layers, or Adaptive Resolution, which allows After Effects to lower the resolution as much as it needs so it can keep up with the interactive changes that we're making inside the comp window, or now we can use one of the two OpenGL options. Interactive is the first one, and what this will allow us to do is use OpenGL only when we're interacting with our composition. So by moving the playhead or moving the different layers in space, we'll actually invoke OpenGL. Any other time, After Effects won't rely on OpenGL, but instead its own internal rendering. If we select OpenGL Always On, After Effects will always use OpenGL, regardless of whether we're interacting with the composition or not. We can either choose OpenGL or simply leave it to Adaptive Resolution. The difference is that when we use Adaptive Resolution and click and drag here in the timeline, you may notice the edges of all of our layers inside of our comp window become a little more ragged. That's because After Effects is going to lower the resolution from full resolution down to, at the very least, a quarter resolution. Why is it a quarter resolution? Well, that is what we set inside of our Fast Preview preferences. If we change this to OpenGL Interactive and then click and drag our playhead, we're going to see a much smoother action inside the comp window. Let's take another look at what's happening under the hood in After Effects. When we click on Adaptive Resolution, then click and drag, notice all of the small green dots in the timeline indicating the caching that After Effects is doing. After Effects is depositing each one of these frames that it's generating into a RAM preview. We know that when there's a full green bar, all of those frames are cached in RAM and we can play those back. By using Adaptive Resolution, every time After Effects can display a full resolution image, it caches that into RAM. If I change this to OpenGL Interactive or Always On, then click and drag the playhead, even dragging it very slowly doesn't produce any rendered frames. Now because I'm using OpenGL interactively, when I stop moving the playhead, the render engine in After Effects takes over, then draws the frame and renders it into RAM. So I get my little green mark on the timeline. So it's important to note that there are many different graphics cards available to you, and you can spend tens of thousands of dollars on some of the top cards. If you're going to buy a new one, you should look at the different features of each, then determine which one is going to be best for your workflow.